All right, you ready?
All right.
On your mark, set. Let's hit it. 1, 2, 3. Folks, welcome back to Toasting the Business. Lynn, it's about damn time you're in the studio.
I know, but I joined you guys last week
from
the beach.
From the bitch.
I know, the beach.
The beach?
Hardly a bitch. It was wonderful.
How was dinner?
Dinner was great.
Yeah.
A little overpriced, but it was really good. It was a nice dinner. But it's my birthday.
It's your
so
birthday.
Whatever. Yeah.
And you had fabulous champagne.
I did. Thank you to Linda.
Mm-hmm. She's like, oh, she signed it. I showed her the picture. She's like, yeah.
It was delicious.
But yeah, and we got to thank Megan for sitting in with us.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, she's become a good fill-in.
She is a good fill-in.
Don't even think about it.
We need to talk later.
Don't even think about it. Nuh-uh. No, you can't do that. But anyway, speaking of Megan, why did we bring her up?
Because she's our sponsor this week. We're having lychee martinis, and she is also the owner of Perspective. Get Perspective helps you explore your career track via videos and other ways of inventorying your likes and dislikes.
Got it?
Yep.
Good. Perspective without an E, folks.
Right.
And the website is getperspectivewithoutane.com. If you need some more information, just check it out in the show notes. Guess what's in there too?
What? Darren's in there?
It's a special discount code
That's
that
right.
Megan has for us.
Forever. Yes.
So anyway, thank you, Megan. Thank you, Perspective. And let's get on to the show.
Let's do it.
I have been going back and forth with this man for quite a while. And when he first reached out, this is before we had even rebranded.
Right.
And so I saw it and I'm like, listen, we've switched, got a brand new email address, still want you on the show. And I kept just bugging the crap out of him.
I'm sure he
said, well, he reached out to me first and then he's like, hey, I don't know, maybe I'm too good now for you guys. But anyway, we have Aidan Mehigan on the show, and he is the founder, right?
Yep.
Of Natterjack whiskey. Natterjack whiskey, a great Irish whiskey. I love the label on the front. It's this massive. Look up what a Natterjack is. It's this like big ass, ugly ass toad.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. Glad you did your research. So anyway, Aidan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Yeah, the Natterjack toad but it's an Irish toad, and it's a very Irish toad in that it can't hop, it walks, it can't swim, it drowns. It does things its own way to survive. That's why it's our spirit animal. So it's there for a reason. And it's got a yellow stripe down its back. But then, and look, it's better to be born lucky than good, right? There's some other reasons why it's our spirit animal that I didn't know when we started this. One is it has a 3-year gestation from toadlet, which is the name of a baby toad, to a fully grown toad. Irish whiskey takes 3 years to make, right? It should have been named after whiskey years ago. It is nocturnal, like some of the best whiskey drinkers, and it has a mating call that can be heard 2 kilometers away, like some of the best whiskey drinkers. So it's the embodiment of an Irish whiskey.
That's so perfect, because I will tell you, when I was in Ireland at 2 or 3 in the morning, and it must have been 2 kilometers away, you could hear that last person coming out of the bar, walking home, singing the whole way.
Marveling. No, call me naive. Is a Natterjack a real animal, or is this like a myth?
No.
It's really a thing. Okay. All right. I'm looking it up when I get home. Okay.
Watch this.
So much so, Lynn, that we release 2,000 of them into the wild every summer. And in order to keep the stocks up, because it is endangered. As I say, they're nigh on suicidal in their inability to swim in their own environment. So yes, we released 2,000 of them. They promptly end themselves, and then next year release another 2,000 of them. So but they're real things. Yeah.
Okay. Do they have a mating call?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't do it, just so we're clear.
Okay. I'm not asking you to
do a croak on our website. If you click it, the croak comes up. Yeah. Someone cleverer than me came up with that.
The reason why I ask is that we had frogs mating behind our house in the summer in Minnesota, and we always had the windows open because it was cool. And the sound.
The Barry White, is that how you know they're mating?
No. The sound sounded like a UFO landing. And I learned it wasn't until they mated that sound would stop. It was loud. It went on all night long. And I think I yelled out the window one night, would you all get laid and just shut up? Because That's why I wondered if the
And the neighbors
Natterjack
were like, I'm trying, but you just ruined the mood.
they probably did. It was extremely loud.
But we're not
Yeah.
here to talk about
No, we're not here to talk about frogs. Yeah.
frogs and their mating rituals. Although maybe if they had a little Natterjack, they would have got it done quicker.
Yeah, maybe.
Could
Yeah.
have. Could have. I'm reasonably sure I'm not allowed to comment on that, but yeah.
What in the world? Why did you, why the hell would you want to be on our podcast? But no, you don't have to answer that. Why did you decide to say, I'm going to open up an Irish whiskey company?
Yeah.
I'm going to
Look,
make this stuff.
it's a great question. And my background was working in financial services, so I'd never done anything like that before, like this. I didn't know I wanted to start a business. I wanted to start a business that produced something, so that there was something at the end of the day I'd be able to hold. That was quite and not like hold as in I need a hug, but more hold in my hands as tangible. So I worked in financial services, and when you look at a screen all day, there's a mixture of red letters when it's bad and green letters when it's good, and then you go home at the end of the day, but you never really touch what you're creating, which is wealth to somebody else. So I knew I wanted to do that, and I figured Irish whiskey had missed me because I had a favorite bourbon, I had a favorite gin. I like a night out as much as anyone else, but I didn't have a favorite Irish whiskey. And for an Irish guy living in London, that's a bit of a strange thing. And I was like, if it missed me, it must have missed other people. And that was kind of the starting point. But at that point, right, Irish whiskey with place names and surnames. This is like 2015. Place names and surnames. It's Jameson or it is Bushmills. It's Glendalough or it is Teeling, right? And they're all doing their own thing, but I don't have the provenance and I didn't have a location. So it's like, right, well, I'm not just going to call it Aidan Mehigan's whiskey because let's be clear, who fucking cares about Aidan Mehigan's whiskey, right? Nobody. So, had I done that, no, we wouldn't be sitting here today, right? I'd be back in financial services. You'd have never heard of me. It'd be an amazing story no one wants to hear. So I was like, right, well, let's throw the rule book out on our brand, and that was where we kind of started. And a friend of mine drew the toad for me, and during a conversation, we realized that there was an Irish toad called a Natterjack, and Kelvin, who's an amazing artist based in Dublin, he drew it for me. And I stuck it on a bottle, and then I poured a half a bottle of Jameson and a half a bottle of Breckenridge into a bottle, and I went off on this kind of mad 2-year journey trying to build a team who could create my vision. Because look, I hadn't worked in the industry, right? I was like, first of all, I need to know how to make whiskey. Actually, this all started when a mate of mine, Connor, sent me an email after a night on the piss. I got up the next morning for work at like 5, and there was an email in my inbox. He's like, maybe start here was the subject line. And in it was like the 5 steps to making whiskey. And I was like, okay, that was the start of the business plan. So I was like, okay. So, and then I built an incredibly rudimentary business plan around that. And then I went off and figured I did not need to know how to make whiskey. So I went on this, I signed up because I knew my favorite bourbon, but I was like, and I knew the flavor profile was a bit sweeter and a bit deeper than Irish whiskey. And I was like, maybe that's what I need to do is like a 4-grain Irish whiskey. And I had all these ideas. I got on a flight and I went to Louisville, Kentucky, which for a man who grew up in South County Dublin, is a long way from Kansas, right? So and I get out
Just a little bit.
Here we go, right? And I'm going to learn how to make whiskey. And so day 2 of the course, which was lots of science, and I'm no scientist, so loads of it was way above my my intellect level. And at day 2, I walk into the car park of the Hilton or something in downtown Louisville, and there's the guy teaching the course, Jordan Vi, and he's staring off into the distance. And I was like, listen, he didn't know me from Adam, right? So I rock up to him and I'm like, hey, how are you? Is everything okay? You look like you look a bit lost. He's like, I've just gotten some really good news about my distillery. And I was like, oh, amazing. Can I buy you a drink? Right. So I'm like, okay, cool. So Jordan and I went to the bar. His wife joins us. And I tell him this story about the toad. I have a site where we're going to put a distillery. And Jordan's like, look, what do you need? And I was like, I need to learn how to make whiskey. He's like, so that's why you're on the course. And I was like, yeah, but Jordan, realistically, I'm like, 92 degrees for 7 hours. Like you lost me at.
I was on my 3rd glass of bourbon at that moment.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And then you compare. I mean, Lexington's kind of like dueling a little bit, right?
Louisville.
No.
Louisville.
No.
He was in Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville.
No.
Louisville, yes, like
Lexington. It's Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's Kentucky.
Just throw a damn dart. It's all the same. Right? Fucking horses and green grass forever. So
So
Jesus.
he said, look, that's why you're on the course. And I said, but I need to learn how to do it. He said, well, why don't you come out to a distillery and learn? So I spent a month. I think he thought I was coming for a weekend. I lived on his couch in his house for a month until eventually he's like, dude, you got to go. So I worked double shifts at Breckenridge Distillery. And from there, we built a relationship. Jordan's still our distiller. Like we've an amazing friendship now. We've been mates now nigh on 10 years. So it's just, and he's been instrumental in getting our flavor profile right. And also, you know, keeping me on the straight and narrow when ideas of flavors and this, that, and the other come down. And he's just like, Jordan's Whiskey won up Irish Whiskey of the Year this year in Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible, beating out, last year it was Redbreast 12 cast strength. The year before it was 30-year-old Bushmills that sells for $2.5 a bottle, right? Ours is $80. Our cast strength $80, right? Our highest priced product, and it's better than a 30-year-old Bushmills. Like, Jordan's a genius. So, and that was the starting point. So the answer is, I wanted to do something else. The long-winded answer to your question is I wanted to do something else. I wanted an adventure, and I was, you know, and it's been that. It's not climbing massive Yellowstone Peak. It's not Mount Rainier, but it's a different type of adventure that has taken us to bankruptcy, I don't know, 4 times. So like, it's, you know, it's been a different type of adventure. We can talk about that in a second.
So wait,
I got a question.
I got 2.
How did you get from London to Austin?
Transportation.
Well, yes, I know it's transportation, but why Austin?
No, it's great. So I that was 2015. Handed my notice in the fund I was working in, and I was like, I'm off. Lloyd, who's still a great mate of mine, was like, I support you, anything you need. So then I drove back and moved into my parents' basement. I was 35 years old, and I'm going to give your listeners advice about moving back in with your parents at 35. Right? It's really simple advice. Don't. They're amazing people. But you're 35. Like, and you're like, you've got some views of the world. And my parents have some views of how I should behave and how they should behave. And those two things did not meet. So I lived there. I lived there for 2 years, and then I met Faye, my wife, and I was like, I knew there was, because at this stage you're dating people from your parents' basement, and I don't know how much that you guys have done, but let me tell you, it's not that glam a look. It's like, oh, we're going back to your house. It's not really my house. It's my parents' house. Oh, great, you're a winner. Right, I'm gone. So I was like, when I met Faye, I was like,
in the basement with your parents?
Is at your parents' house? Isn't that called failure to launch?
It's called a lot of things. Oh, the list just goes on and on and on.
That's okay though. He made it. He launched.
Right? Yeah. Get off the fucking couch. So
you're back in Egypt. Yeah,
right, exactly. So it's like, I need to move out because this, you know, I want, this girl's amazing and we're gonna have a great relationship. So I moved out just after we met and all that. So maybe it's a year after. Anyway, so and then we launched the business in 2019, and that was amazing. During that year, we had our first kid. So it was 2018 with Gussie. So life was busy, but the business was busy, and 2019 was amazing. And because I'd spent so much time meeting people and telling the story of the Toad before actually bringing the product to market, I had for 2019, a really good black book of people who'd showed interest in stocking it, right? And then I went back methodically once we had the product in hand, and I said, do you remember back in 2017 when you told me you'd like to stock my product? Well, I have product. Would you like to stock it now? Most of them were like, stop calling me. But a number of them were like, thanks for reaching out. We always like the idea. Please send us a few cases. And so by the end of 2019, we were still living in Ireland, and we were exporting to 6 global markets and 4 US markets, right? Which in year 1, way ahead of what we thought. Was
Japan one of the biggest markets you had? Because they, in the past decade, they have just embraced whiskey, and then they have taken it over too. I think Santori or somebody, they bought a couple or invested in Jack Daniels or something like that.
Really?
I mean, it is a craze over there.
No.
Was that one of your biggest global markets?
It actually wasn't. I went to meet the distributor in Japan, right? And I didn't bring a translator with me, which was a huge mistake. Because they could not understand where the Toad came into the production process.
You just squeeze the lady bastards in there. We milk them.
Right?
What?
Try as I might, I could not get the point across the line. Try as I might. I sat there. I was like, this is the worst meeting I've ever been in. They genuinely think I'm using the toad to make alcohol.
Well, I mean,
my gosh.
considering some of the foods that they eat over in Asia,
It's
I
true,
get it.
yeah.
But I do have a side question on that.
Yeah.
You're in Asia and you're in 6 global markets, and you have to take these meetings around the world, and you have to learn about the cultural differences. So when you walk into a meeting, say you're in Germany, it's like you better not be late, and you better be exactly 5 minutes early for your meeting. In Japan, you have to know, there are certain things when you walk in a room, you have to bring a gift to present somebody in the meeting. Maybe not the first time.
Don't
but the
hold up
second.
your index finger in some countries because that's
Right.
a bad sign.
So what was like the biggest, was that a big learning curve, or you were just like, fuck it, I'm just going in and doing my thing?
No, so it was, right? And a friend of mine, Patrick, had lived in Tokyo. And so I called him before that Japanese meeting. He didn't mention the fact that I was going to completely fucking goose the meeting for reasons neither of us could have foreseen. But I did ask him about the presents, and I did ask him about those bits. But I have an interesting story about that. So China was, at the end of that year, China was one of our biggest markets. And like the law of unintended consequences comes into this as well. So I had an idea. So our bottle has this kind of stout top on it, and I really wanted it dipped in wax. And I was like, forget the cost, it looks amazing. And so I had Faye and myself were in dipping bottles for a weekend for this this Chinese order. They'd ordered maybe a half a pallet. Sorry, not a half a container. It was our biggest order back in 2019, right? Now, the path from Ireland to China goes through the not the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal in the middle of summer. 40, 50 degree heat for you guys, 110, right? Yep. So the wax melts, the whiskey expands, and all the corks pop out somewhere just south of Panama City, right? So it gets to China. It gets to China, and the guy said when they opened the container, it smelled amazing, but all the whiskey was gone. So Mr. Wang came to see me, and I was like, the bottles were beautiful. And it was we did Instagrams about it. It was like, here's our first container. Wow, international, all that jazz, which was amazing. It was all completely used by the time it got to Shanghai. But he came in and he saw me, and he was like, are you going to pay for it? And I was like, well, I mean, no. Like, I said, but then he said, well, our insurance won't cover it. And I was like, right, here's an opportunity. I said, I'll pay for it if your next order, which we agreed today, is 4 times the size, so 2 containers. And he said, done. And I was like, so I turned a 30 grand, give or take, loss to us at a production level and shipping and all that sort of stuff into basically 80% of our revenue for 2019.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
We shook on it, and I was like, right. And there's a great lesson in that, because problems are only problems if you let them become so. And it's become kind of a thing for us in the business. It's like things happen. They happen all the time that you don't want or that you weren't expecting. But with a mindset shift of not from, oh no, but what way can we spin this? There can generally be. Now, I'm not saying you can constantly, like, I'm not an alchemist. We can't turn lead into fucking gold. But what we can do is say, right, well, what can we leverage from this, right? So how can we lever a 30 grand loss into a 200 grand order? And that was kind of what we did back then. And I just remember when they left, like, I was walking around the office punching the air, but then Mr. Wang's daughter had left her bag in the office, so she came back in the door, and she must have been like, why is this Irish guy dancing? What have we done? Sorry, but then the answer around the cultural differences, right? So after that deal was done, I'd agreed to go and spend 3 days in Qingdao in China and meet distributors, right? And so they were like, they'd set up all these talks and everything. Now, look, I can make a room full of people in North America or people in Europe who speak good English. I can generally tell some stories that make people laugh. It works. It's part of the brand, and it's, I guess, part of my personality. I got to China, and I'm not being funny, but it was a room of about 60 people. And to quote Bill Hicks, it was like I'd shown a dog a card trick. Like, no one laughed over the whole full hour and a half. I don't know what the translator said. It was a completely just deadpan. right? And then as we're going to go and sit down, right? Mr. Wang comes over and he's like, have you spent much time in China? And I was like, well, I spent the last 2 days with you, and you've asked me this question 9 times, but no, still not. And he's like, okay, so everyone here is going to want to have a drink with you. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
You have 60 drinks? Am I? No, I'm not. Thank you very much. So he's like, well, just take it easy. And I was like, you don't need to tell me not to have 60 drinks. So anyway, this is going on. And then so I was taking little sips while people did shots, and we're halfway through the line. And I hear a kind of an American accent. And this guy, I hadn't heard anyone else speak English for like 2 days. And this guy goes, hello, I studied at Harvard and I'm going to fuck you up. Let's do a full shot. And I was like, oh my God.
Here we go.
So this guy, he played varsity something at Harvard when he was there. He was a big dude, and he's like,
varsity rugby player, probably.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, you've absolutely goosed me here, and he kept it quiet. So I didn't realize, I recognized all of the polite things, but I didn't realize some of the maybe the drinking aspects that I was going to be put through.
That's a heavy thing over there. It really is. I mean, they work their ass off all day. They drink to about blackout stage and then rinse and repeat and do it over and over. And you're like, you're insane. And I mean, our former co-host used to talk about that when he would travel to Asia. He's like, it's nuts. I mean, half the time he's just like, and just pour it on the carpet, pour it on the carpet.
Pour it in the plant.
It's like, I'm not doing this. I got to work tomorrow.
What happens when Friday comes? Is it like
well,
the
that's
biggest
different. Friday's
hangover?
different because you have 2 days to recover, Glenn.
No, but you've been drinking all week after work.
You
Never
talking
mind.
about me, or are you talking about
No, the Chinese,
host?
yeah,
Oh,
the
okay, good.
Chinese,
I thought you were pointing fingers.
No.
I'm like,
But I don't point
I
fingers.
haven't had a drink in
2 seconds.
22 hours.
22 No, you've been drinking that.
That's why I said 22 hours.
Okay.
Do the math.
We digress.
It's all right.
All right,
So
and we're back.
I mean, you seal the deal with those folks, and was it you gained your distribution? Is that who they were, Mr. Wang and the group over there in China?
Exactly, yeah. And so they got us distribution in 3 cities. So Qingdao, which you've probably heard of the beer. I'd never heard of the city, to be honest. And I stayed in a hotel that was definitely the largest hotel I've ever stayed in. But what was unique about it was I was the only person staying there. I'm not even joking with you, right? There was loads of staff, but I ate in the restaurant on my own, and it was the size of about a half of an American football field. It was fucking huge. The menu was like 20 pages, and I was like, where is all this food? See, like, what is going on here? But it was like the off season in Qingdao, so there was just nobody there. It was kind of wild. But look, and they looked after me really well. They're still our distributors, and I have a great relationship with them. Like, but it was just, you travel that far around the world, and you're just like, the world is a very different place. Amazing, and I've traveled so many places with the business that has just been amazing to see, and to see how people interact with your product, because that the Japanese toad point, and then other people interact with it in different ways. Like part of why we got distribution, and this is a point about better to be lucky than to be good. There's a Chinese toad that appears, called a Jin Chan, that appears to Chinese people in mythology before they get good financial or fertility news. Now, I should say that that's part of my strategy with to break Asia with my incredibly clever toad. I had no idea.
Yes.
You were so forward thinking on that one, weren't you?
Yeah, that's it. So we knew it was a big market, but yeah, and so they're still our distributors in China, but that foothold got us distribution in Taiwan, in South Korea. I think that's probably it over there at the moment. But I'm going to Hong Kong at the end of the month with Scott, our head of global sales, to open up more parts in that market. So
Do you need a personal assistant to go with you?
I've got a queue of personal assistants. I got Faye, I got Gussie, I got Ralph, I got Artie. 2 more. All right.
Would you like a personal singer to go with you? Somebody who could just
100%.
sing you smoky lounge songs. So Tommy Ward back here, I was trying to find a segue into that and bring him into the conversation. He is a former guest on the podcast as well, and that's what he does for a living. So maybe you could help him break into Asia while he's over there. You could be singing. You don't want to sing to the Asian market?
I don't know. I'm just here.
Yeah,
It's a hard no.
He's got a great voice. Great
That
voice.
was a hard no. Yeah.
So I mean, he launched in Las Vegas. He used to sing in all of, and still does
Wow,
occasionally
okay.
at the casinos and stuff in Vegas. So yeah, does all the Rat Pack stuff. Sinatra, Dean Martin,
Mhm.
even better. Little Mel Torme occasionally.
Little Mel Torme for sure.
Yeah.
You get the Velvet Fog back there,
Yeah.
Junior.
Right.
So anyway, that'll be a good trip for you, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But still, how did you get to Texas?
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
So I got sidetracked. So so part of, as I say, by the end of 2019, we were in 4 global markets. Sorry, 4 US markets, right? And I came and did a trip across the states. So I mean, I think, what was that? Yeah, the end of 2019. So we did Washington State, so Seattle, Chicago, New Hampshire, New York, and Florida, right? So we took it from 4 to 5 markets. New Hampshire, we opened up on that trip with chance meeting of a girl in a bar in Dublin. Turned out she worked at a charity that my brother worked at, and she asked me what I did. And I lied. I said I had a whiskey business. I didn't. I had a plan for a whiskey business. And she said, "Well, my dad he distributes alcohol in New Hampshire. So maybe give him a call." So I did when I had whiskey, and he set up this meeting. We went and opened up New Hampshire on the trip. But I got back from that trip, and I was like, "Hey, we need to move to the States." And she's like, "Okay, let me know where we're going." I was like,
Is Faye a Dubliner?
"Say again."
Is Faye a Dubliner herself?
No, Faye's from Suffolk in the UK. She's from the east coast of England. On the coast there. They got a farm just north of Ipswich. So I was like, so if I go into a bar in Dublin, right, I pull out my bottle of Natterjack with the funny frog on it. They're like, "Get out, who cares," right? I go into a bar here, they're like, "Tell me more." Like, there's something about the American ethos and DNA that is kind of driven by entrepreneurialism. It's not like any other country I've been in, right?
Yep.
And if people meet somebody whose business it is, they want to support, and that can be from a farmer's market to a big company that's done incredibly well. There's something that works here, and I realized at the end of that trip that that's what we needed to do. So in 2019, I was like, "Let's go," and then lo and behold, fast forward 6 months, we had this offer from a US VC firm for investment, and part of that was we were going to move to Chicago, but it was COVID, right? And we couldn't move for a year.
So was it? Hold on, really quick. Was that a seed round? Was it an A round? What type of?
That would have been that would have been an A round. So we'd done our seed back in 2018. Yeah.
Okay.
Friends and family and seed round, and this would have been an A round effectively, which would have taken. And look, it wasn't an A round where there's money coming to me or anyone else. It was an A round for growth capital, and
Gotcha.
and look, and global hospitality was in free fall, so we were like, "Let's do it." But that deal didn't close, and it didn't close for a whole heap of reasons. But by the end of 2021, and at this stage, we've already had Ralph, who's our second, and Faye's pregnant with Archie, our third. So we needed to work out what we were going to do, because the business, like, COVID didn't allow, like, an international business can't flourish at our level without travel, until we weren't able to travel. So so that was put us in a tight spot, and we refinanced the business then in 2022. And I remember when we kind of closed the deal, and I talk about it like we just did it. We didn't, right? The VC firm that had tried to invest, and some of our previous investors tried to take the business off us. There was what my father calls a hostile takeover, but I think it's probably more aggressive than that. But they forced us into Chapter 11, and we came out the other side having secured investment. Right now, it was brutal 18 months. We sold our house, sold our car, sold almost all of our belongings. Moved in with my wife's parents, who are actually here. They're outside cutting down trees with the kids. They're here for this week. And so Wayne and Sue took us in, and we asked to move in for 2 weeks while we sorted things out. 8 months later, we were still there. They were just, "Get out." So I seem to have a history of doing that. But so by the end of that, we agreed the refinancing, and the court found in our favor, right? And that's kind of a simplification of what happened. But it got that bad. We had no money. And the business had no money and no revenue. And So we agreed that the deal with our investors, who are our current investors and are just an amazing group of people who we met in different ways. And they were like, you're the best salesperson for this brand. You can't do it from an office in Dublin. And this was just as we were about to close, right? And they're like, are you willing to move for the brand? And I was like, 100%, I'll go anywhere. Like, this is, everything's on the line here. And I'm sure that they were like, he still needs to sell this to Faye, right? I'm pretty and like, they're like, no one's writing a check until we have her buy-in, because if he walks out of the room and she won't go, well, then all this money is invested in assets that aren't transferable. And I was always very clear I'd move, and I wanted to be clear about that. I think they believed it. So I left that meeting, right? And I went out to Faye, and I was like, would you like to move to Chicago or New York? And Faye's like, neither. And I was like,
No.
Yeah.
we got ourselves we got ourselves a bit of a problem here, because everything rests on us going to the States. She's like, no, I'll go to the States, no problem, but I'm not going to Chicago or New York. And what she said, and I'll tell you what she said are two different things. She says, I want outdoor spaces, I want sunshine, and I want cowboys. That's what she actually said. If you ask her,
Girl.
Cowboys?
Girl. Yes.
if you ask her now what she says, she'll say, I want sunshine, outdoor spaces, and horses. But that's definitely not what was said in that meeting. So
Now you're playing the Beyonce song. This ain't Texas. This ain't home.
Right, yeah.
You
No,
know
I
that?
I said to her, we've got distribution in Texas. What about Texas? Neither of us ever been. And that was October 2022. And she said, Texas sounds fun. And as an aside, when we got married during COVID in 2020, neither of us knew what the other one was wearing. And I wore cowboy boots because I thought it would be funny and I'd get in trouble. And she wore a cowboy hat for the same reason. But we didn't know, right? And that's kind of, we both looked looking ridiculous. But, no, they looked amazing. I looked ridiculous.
Oh my God, the symbolism. And it was like meant to be,
Perfect.
right?
You know that
Oh my
song,
gosh.
Do You Want to Be My Cow?
Yeah, I know that song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's awesome. So you picked Austin.
Well, so just to get to the end of how to get to Austin, the next day I booked a flight. Our folks looked after the kids, and Faye and I flew to Austin, rented a house, flew home, got the kids, got a visa, and flew back. And that's how we ended up in Austin January last year.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot.
Taking that.
And it doesn't sound like you have a problem with change, or maybe, some people get kind of very stuck with a plan and they got to work the plan.
Those are the Scots.
And this
Those
won't
are-
work with the plan. We're not moving to Austin. We're moving to Chicago. Chicago is the plan.
Yeah,
But you're just taking it and going. That's great.
but isn't that why we did it? And I hadn't really thought about putting it like that, but isn't that why you start a business? Because you want to, a bit like a river, you want to find what path works for you. Now, and you can't, I'd still work in finance if what I wanted was the path defined for me. And the path that's
Right.
defined for me, let me tell you, it's easier, it's nicer, and there's more money in it. But it's a hell of a lot less crack. And this journey that we're on, and by the way, like this story's not being told as a done deal. This is very much, we're in the throes of the journey. We're not even halfway.
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta be open to change and everything that brings with it. And there's an amazing quote by Seth Godin, which is and I'm going to misquote it, I misquote shit all the time, and then people put it on Instagram. They're like, you're an idiot. And I get that. I am.
That's all right. I do it too.
I do
I
too.
fuck up names all
It's
the
called
time. Just
malapropisms.
listen to every
Yeah.
episode of the podcast, and I will screw your name up with our.
And that adds to the rich tapestry, right?
Yeah.
It's like the fear of success is every bit as crippling as the fear of failure. I'm paraphrasing, because if it's successful, everything's going to change. And are you ready for that, right? And that was it, right? So that call where the guys were like, "Are you willing to go?" And the point is, if you say yes and you commit to it, your whole life is blown apart in a positive way, but you're gone. Like and you're not going back for a period, because let's be honest, they've invested in the brand and they've invested in me working for the brand. They have not invested in me sitting around and doing nothing, and they haven't invested in me having you know, there's an investment that has to be paid, that has to
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah, that's
And
perfect.
and that's gonna change. And it's, don't get me wrong, this is not a complaint. I absolutely love it, and I love the pressure. There's an axe behind my head.
I was
and
going to ask
two of
you
them back
about
there.
those 2 axes. Yes. And a baseball bat. I do
Is
not
this-
want to rob your
Is this-
house.
Hold on, you remember Danny DeVito in War of the Roses, and he had that one cigarette in the container on his desk, and the battle got so bad between the husband and wife that he like broke down to smoke that. It's when he quit smoking. So I'm wondering if those axes are the same thing. It's like
Oh,
we're
that.
so
Okay, okay.
desperate.
We're going
You
to
know,
take the
if I
axe
pull
and
the
break,
axe down, we're out.
break the
Okay, fine.
safety. Break
So
the
no, what
safety
is
net.
it? What's the real thing?
So I buy old axe heads and restore them, right? That's why they're there. However, what it actually is it's a sort of Damocles, right? Like, I recognize that everything rests on our sales, and I think about that on every call. So it's really easy in founder-led brands and in fun drink brands and to do things that don't make sense from a sales perspective. So let me give you an example. Why don't we buy the naming rights to some event, right? And we'll be on sale in 6 locations in this event. And that's amazing. And for Aidan, won't that be amazing? I'll walk in and it'll be the Toads event. And wow, I've taken a Toad. Like, did I make any sales from the event? Well, I didn't. Okay. So the sort of Damocles doesn't care if I feel good about an event that has a toad on it, right? The sort of Damocles, which sits here on every call I'm on, reminds me that it has to be a commercial success. It's not about how I feel. It's about how we take the passion and transform it into an organization people want to work for, B, a product people want to buy, but C, and most importantly, a return for our investors who took a punt on me when we were all but dead in the water. And so they sit there because they're a lot less aggressive for the outside world than they look. I would suggest no one should break into our house because there's axes and baseball.
There's more axes around than just those two.
There's a lot of them.
You know what? Let me before I
It's just
chop your
decor.
knees off, let me explain why these are here. Have you ever heard of the Greek mythology, the sword of Damocles? Now let me explain it. Sit down before I chop your knees off,
right?
and let me explain it
This
to you.
sounds
And,
like a scene out of Misery.
and here's a
the movie.
little Natterjacks. This is our cast
make you
one.
feel
This is a
better.
higher grade one. And then I'm going to chop your knees off. But just wait. Let me ask my wife if it's okay. Faye, can I chop his knees off? He's so polite. I'll tell him.
Listen, if Faye is from a farm in Suffolk, if I'm asking her, can I chop someone's knees off? Right, you're already toast. Your knees are gone. You should just make what you make. He's not going to save you.
She'd have a little Scottish in her. She'd be like, save the intestines. We're going to stuff them afterwards.
Ah, disgusting.
But anyway,
So okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Tell me something. When you sent back to China, was it 2 container loads of, how did you prevent the wax from popping off or melting and popping off the corks? Because I see it, I can see it in my head, and it's so darn hot down there that I can totally imagine it happening.
We put on a PET closure, right? And Maker's Mark don't pop because it's a screw top, right? So they don't have the chance. We put on a PET closure and then we wax dipped them in there.
Okay.
Then we eventually did a wax dipping because wax dipping is a pain in the hole. And people were burning themselves, and it wasn't.
Okay. So that was just for show at first.
Well, we did do a video, right, when we did it where Faye gets some of the wax and she pours it onto my leg and she attempts to wax my leg with the wax from the barrel. Which, let me tell you, and that was not my idea, but let me tell you, it hurt like a bastard.
So she didn't. At least she didn't try to wax your back or something.
You've never studied the different colors. Different colors of waxes have different temperatures. You didn't check that one out first, did you?
No, the one that went on the egg, I can't remember what color it was, but the temperature was fucking hot. Like, that's a Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's a Fahrenheit. It's a way high. And then the other thing is, where are you producing your beverage, your liquor now? Is it all in the US? Are you doing it overseas? How's this working? What's your supply chain?
So Irish whiskey has to be produced in Ireland. So ours is produced 2 hours in Dublin. And then all of the aging, barreling, finishing happens in Ireland. So did the bottling actually for us. And then that all happens in a town called Dundalk. And then it's shipped from there. So everything leaves Ireland in a Natterjack bottle. We're not at the level yet where it makes sense to ship bulk product in a bottle over here. We're not far off it. I suspect we're going to start looking at options in 2025. But everything's done in Ireland at the moment.
Okay. All right. I like that.
It's a young whiskey, and it's every 3 years, or are you open for longer?
But yeah, so Irish whiskey takes 3 years to become whiskey from new make spirit, 3 years in barrel. Ours spent 3.5 years. Say again?
It's what year is it when it's like 2 years and it's still clear, and the third year it starts taking the caramelization, the golden color?
It starts to take the color, yeah. But when you're using ex-bourbon like Irish whiskey does for that aging process, there's not a lot of color extract in those first 3 years. So what comes out is very light. So by year 3.5, we take it out and we put it into virgin oak barrels, char number 4. And that was Jordan's kind of genius. He's like, this will be amazing if we put a virgin American oak finish on it. So Natterjack Blend 1, which your samples that you have in front of you there, you can now taste.
Delicious, light, crisp, love it. Better than anything I've had.
Tastes like a toast.
I mean, 2 of my favorites are Powers and Patties. I got to tell you, those other 2 brands that you named earlier, never. So
crush them. But then it spends a year virgin oak, and then so that's 2 of ours. That's Blend 1 and Cask Strength. And Cask Strength is a slightly different blend, but it's true Cask Strength at 63% ABV. But then the Mistake, which is what I'm drinking today, is we call it the Mistake because I
see it.
Printed.
It's double.
The label.
It's out of register.
Perfect.
So once again, these are things that you don't think about, right? When I moved back to Ireland's an amazing place, right? But I moved back from London, where in London, if in London in finance, if someone asks you to do something, you do it, or they lose money or you lose money. So someone's going to lose money, and so someone's neck is going to be on the line. So you become very good, and that's one of the things you learn is you execute and then you move on, right? So that's part of what my job was, and so I naively assume that's what happened everywhere. But in Ireland's a different place, right? In Ireland, people don't do it, and this is in all aspects of life, not whiskey production or anything else. People don't do what you ask. They do what they think you want, because there's a deep sense in an Irish person's persona where they think they know what you want more than you do, which is a problem when you're blending whiskey or when you're so I don't know whose mistake it was. However, I called up when we launched in 2019, back when we got that big order to China, and I was like, where are those 46 barrels that I asked to be disgorged last year that had the finishing process? And they said, well, they're still in the barrel. I was like, so they're an extra year in the barrel? And he was like, yeah. I was like, cool. I'm going to refer you to email dated blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, it's still in the barrel. Like, it doesn't matter what your email says, right? I can't go back and take it out of the barrel last year, can I? And I was like, that's a super point. I mean, I don't like your attitude, but that is a super point. We're fucked. Right. So now I have this massive order we've managed to work our way through it. But this liquid, these 46 casks, we disgorged them then, but they sat in a stainless steel container for years, right? And then we had success with Blend 1, and we'd moved to the States, and we Cask Strength won Irish Whiskey of the Year, and we still had this liquid sitting in these steel containers. And I was like, well, why don't we do something with it, right? And I remember speaking to a few people, and they're like, well, you could do something really cool here about how it's the whiskey you always wanted to craft, like, and this is your special project. And I was like, yeah, but that's not true.
I'm not sold yet on that. Yeah.
That's not. I mean, I love the idea that I'm a genius. It'd be amazing, wouldn't it? It's not true. Right, so here's what we have. We left it in the barrel for too long, and we fucked up. We made it a mistake. So I was like, let's call it Natterjack the Mistake. And everyone's like, oh, I can kind of get yeah, cool. It's a heavily oaked Irish whiskey, right? So great. So we go for label approvals. we go for label approval with the Irish Whiskey Association or the Agriculture Board or whoever it is. And David is a genius. He runs our logistics. And they said, well, look, the mistake's not a great name because it doesn't suggest that we're a very professional whiskey producing country. And I was like, these with the geographical indicators is all about being honest, about being truthful. And so Dave went past and he's like, the honest truth is we made a mistake. And they're like, okay, but how many mistakes are there going to be? Because there can't be a second mistake and a third mistake. And I was like, well, we'll see. So we got approval. On the back of the label somewhere, I'm called an occasional screw up because this one is at my door. But the whiskey, just from here, is absolutely amazing. And it's that's kind of just one of those things. It's like, to that point earlier, if you find a way to make a mistake an opportunity, and if you can do that as a young company, because there are so many mistakes, and then I think that's kind of a learning, and I think that's us trying to tell the story of a startup company through the actual brand, right? Rather than just do an Instagram story that says, right, this is Natterjack blend number 2, and it's even better than blend number 1. I was like, well, let's just tell them what happened. Like, that's the people want to know.
You're being vulnerable, which opens you up to more opportunities.
Vulnerable and your true self.
Authenticity.
Thank you. That's the word.
It's like manifesting.
Don't fucking say that word. I'm still not over. Not ready. But authenticity is, you've brought that up numerous times, and especially from what you do in content, you're like, just be authentic, be your authentic self. And that's what you're doing. And I mean, the world knows how the Irish really are. I mean, a bunch of trunks. The reason they put grass on the ground is so we could hang on to something so we don't fall off the planet.
What, because you're so tiny? Kidding.
I mean, there really isn't gravity. You guys are all wrong. Anyway, but that's authentic. That's being your true self.
I love it.
I would buy it just for that, but I also buy it because it's fabulous and delicious. I have to ask you this question because there are people who are out there like, okay, so we've got Irish whiskey and then there's the US whiskey, and why the E and no E? And I already know the answer. So
oh my God, I didn't realize that because I don't drink I don't drink risky. I never. Okay, tell us what's the difference between the US.
All right, look, it's an incredible question, and I have no idea.
Really?
It's like what's the difference between champagne and sparkling wine? It's the same
or
shit.
Cold duck, right? Yeah.
It technically, if it's made on the other side of the pond, it's without the E. If it's made over here, it's got the E. And that's really it. That's it.
No, Irish whiskey has the E. I don't know why.
Oh, okay, I'm backwards.
It's to
Hold
do
on,
with
let me switch hands.
I suspect it's because Scotch people are known to be thrifty, and so I suspect that it's cheaper to produce a printed version. You'll spend less money on the ink. That would be my guess.
Well, honestly, that's probably the God's honest truth out of the whole thing.
You just disparage Scottish people?
All of them. Because if you think about it, right, double distillation, right? We invented it. I
have a very, very good friend who's Scottish.
Who
just celebrated a major milestone birthday on Sunday.
Yeah.
She was serenaded in with bagpipers. And Sheila, I love you, but God, you're cheap. No, but like in the real world, it's unbelievable. Like some of the stuff that goes on. I'm like, girl.
I do have a real question for you, though.
It's not.
Go ahead.
They're not embarrassed about it. They see it as
they're not. It is what it is. Yeah. It's like, and I'm going to take, as they say in the UK, I'm going to take the piss out of another country. The Canadians, they're the same way. I'm sorry. They are. Like, for example, my parents had a rental house in Florida, and it was very reasonable to rent a house for a month there. And the Canadians always came in and wanted 20% off the posted rent rate. And my parents were like, just because you're Canadian doesn't mean I'm going to just give you an automatic discount. It was like, well, we pay so much in taxes. Nobody else asked for a discount. It was always the Canadians that asked for the discount. So there you go. There's my rant of the day. Yes, I feel better.
I have a serious question now.
Yes. You're looking at.
I don't know.
But
No,
you don't know what the serious
anyway.
question is.
No, the question is, where you guys have your barrels, or is it all indoors, or is it more like the bourbon where it's just an overhang and outdoors and exposed to the elements? Or I mean, oh crap, I can't think of the freaking word. Anyway, how do you barrel it? Is it exposed to the elements? And
Is it
So,
heat?
Scotch.
Is it
Scotch is the same way.
controlled environment, or is it just you just
because
let it go wild?
even Scotch is the same way. It's
Mhm.
a little, it's exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
When
How do you do it?
So, I'm going to answer it with a kind of a story as to how shocked I was when I got into this industry, right?
I'm going to hold you really quick. I want you to tell the story, but hold that thought. So when I went to Ireland, my very first bartender said, "Let me tell you this about the Irish."
Yeah.
He said, "They'll be very quiet
Um,
and they won't talk. But as soon as you ask them a question and engage them, just sit back because they'll ramble
It's
on
gonna
for
go.
hours."
all right.
Okay, so go
Aidan,
ahead.
Here you go, Aidan. Let's go.
So working with Jordan in Breckenridge, everything was labeled. The barrels, we moved them around. Then there was an iPad, which weren't massive back in 2015, and it's like he's like, we've moved pallet number whatever to wherever, and it all went through this incredible thing. I went to Ireland, and the barrels were all over the fucking place, right? Like there was some down there was some over there was 46 we couldn't find, and it's like, right, all right. Now that all happened within a very tight or a parameter that's defined for tax purposes, but like it's loose as a goose. So where are they in Ireland?
In some warehouse. They're out there somewhere. They're rolling around.
They just have to roll over to Connemara. I don't know why they're over there. Let's get them.
Honestly, there could be some on a fucking canoe at the moment, and I'd be the last to know. So I don't know. Yeah.
Well, so much for quality control. That's really what I was getting at. But I'm not even going to go there
Oh
now.
my God, that's hilarious. It's the best. So you're in Austin. Austin has quite the nightlife. Are you to the point in Austin where you can go to any bar, any entertainment area, and Natterjack is there? Or are there just specific places that you're able to go and you're able to get it? Or not at all?
Specific places. Oh no, we got distribution. Like the figures aren't big, guys. Like maybe 25 bars in Austin stock Natterjack, and like we're just getting into specs now. Somebody in Texas, in their infinite wisdom, and I didn't know about this before I moved here, they created what's called the Class B system. And that means no bar in Texas can buy from our distributor. They have to buy from Class B. So there's another layer. They got to buy from an off-prem. Okay? So think about that from green behind the ears Aidan arrives here, and I was like meeting these bar owners, and I was like, look, this is my story. I moved my family here, isn't it great? And they're like, yeah, we'll take a case. And I was like, amazing, I'll put you on to my distributor. And they're like, no, you can't do that here. So, and I was like, well, what Class B do you use? And they're like, well, we use this one. So then I've made the sale, I got to go down the street to the Class B and convince them to take my product on. Right. So that's big an onboarding process of, I don't know, 3 months. And then now my bartender, who I spent all night schmoozing, and the two of us, I was going to name my kid after him. And then it's like 3 months later, he's like, who the fuck is this guy? Right? He's talking about me naming his kid. And it's like, so it's a disaster zone from a street selling perspective until you get at that Class B level. And that took us a long time. So Texas is one of my favorite places, right? I love the people. I love the place. I love the fact that everything's trying to fucking kill you, and everything is trying to kill you. And I'll give you a story about that, right? It's not even messy.
The animals, the bugs, the people, everything.
Somebody
The weather.
Every day we run into somebody who goes, we ought to just seed. We just need to seed from the country. We'll be our own. We'll just take a boat.
It's true.
Take a boat.
The entire
We
time
can
it's been
survive
a
on our
state.
own.
The entire time it's been a state. We're going to secede from the union. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get into bed, right? Turn the light off. Night Faye. Well, half an hour later, something stings me. And I was like, I've got a reasonable pain threshold. I was like, cool. So I roll over. And then Ralph starts screaming because something stung his head. And I was like, oh, you'll be okay. And Faye's like, oh, I don't think he's going to be okay. And I was like, okay, what do you think it is? And then she pulls her hand up and there's a scorpion that has stung all three of us hanging out of her hand. And so, as you can imagine, all hell breaks loose, right?
Of course it should.
All hell breaks loose. We're only there about a week and a half at this stage. Like, it's something from a fucking movie. So anyway, I put my phone on top of the scorpion. Faye went and got something to look at. Anyway, we're all fine. But yeah. So everything in Texas is trying to kill you. But I love that. I absolutely love it.
It's on your toes.
But it's yeah, it is like the whole game.
Back to the time of finance, when at the end of the day you look and you go, "Oh, look, it balanced."
And there's no bugs that are biting him.
I'm not off by one cent.
Oh,
I'm balanced.
But
No,
that
I get
is
it.
Hilarious.
Producing a tangible asset for some people is a thing. You know,
It
you have to.
is, yeah.
It's like working in the restaurant business, doing whatever, making songs,
Right.
making a website for folks, and having that tangible asset. Now, I want to ask you this as we start to get to the end, because over the past 10, 15 years, you know, whiskey was the main thing and bourbon kind of sat behind it. And then bourbon overtook it only, I think, because bourbon's a little sweeter. And I'm not going to say people out there, trust me, I love bourbon, but I think the complexity of it is a little simpler and it's more palatable when you first drink it.
Mhm.
And it's easier because the mash ratio, the corn, the sweetness of it overtakes that, and that's why it's a little more inviting. But when you get into whiskeys, and I would say whiskey is becoming a little more sophisticated in itself, like at a higher level, but just as palatable as anything else as it was for decades. I mean, we could have whiskey sours today and it would have been fantastic, even though these
are fabulous for a hot day.
Delicious, aren't they?
They're
Dynamite,
refreshing.
sweet, refreshing, right on the spot.
Mhm.
But you know, whiskey is honestly, it's a little, it's just so crisp, it's so clean, it just rolls off the palate much easier. And I think as an aficionado, you got to go back to whiskey because it's been around a lot longer. So suck it, bitches. Whiskey is number one. Bourbon, you're number two. And Natterjack is my number one.
I guess I need to go down the whiskey trail because I have no clue. I've never.
Yeah.
I told you
What
the
do you-
story why
well,
I don't drink that stuff.
This was a roundabout question.
Okay, all right, go on.
So what do you think, Aidan? Do you agree with me? Or you keep bringing up Breckenridge, and I know they make a fine bourbon as well. All right. So you're talking about Breckenridge bourbon.
They
Right?
do. And
But
so
your whiskey is far, far exceeds any of that.
I could not agree more. I'm delighted you gave me the opportunity to talk about it from such. No. Look, I can speak to what other people have done, and I do regularly. And sometimes I'm wrong, and they don't like it. But what I would say is, what bourbon did much better. What bourbon did much better was bringing people along on the journey, right? Like, pick a Scotch, Glenfiddich, right? How does Glenfiddich relate to Chad McNeil, who lives in upstate New York? And that's a problem. Now, can Balcones, which is in Texas, can they relate with Chad McNeil? Well, they can, because he can go there and meet the people who do it. And that, for me, was what bourbon did in a way the rest of the world didn't, which was open up the industry to people seeing there were real people behind it. And that grew this maybe 3 or 4 stream kind of craft, because now craft in bourbon doesn't mean craft anymore, because some of these places are absolutely huge. And so what does craft mean? Well, no one really knows. But I suppose for me, I understand your point about histories, or about Scotch's tradition, but Scotch's tradition, and tradition in general, to a younger generation is mattering less and less. And so I don't want to go after people who care about tradition. I want to go after people who want to try new things. And those they're not mutually exclusive, and I'm not saying that they are, but in my experience, younger people want to try new things more than older people want to try new things. And I find that in myself, as I get older, I don't really want to try new things anymore. And that's where Natterjack is trying to aim, right? I'm trying to say to people, right, if you like gin and you don't like brown spirits, try Natterjack. If you like bourbon and you don't like Irish, try Natterjack. If you like Irish and you don't like bourbon, try Natterjack. If you drink, what are you guys drinking?
It's vodka with Grand Marnier and lychee juice.
Perfect. If you guys like vodka, Grand Marnier, and lychee juice, please, Jack. I can blow your mind.
I appreciate you qualifying that because I'm a gin drinker. And vodka, I like clear spirits and tequila. And you know, the darker spirits I'm not a fan of, but I think I might try this to see how I like it. Yeah. And
in the interest of owning a screw up, I'll make sure samples arrive with you by next week, right? Like this, it's not good enough if you didn't have it for drinking, but I'll make it up. And you guys, Megan, and I've forgotten the gentleman who's listening to
Tommy.
There'll be some for you guys as well. Okay, so leave that with me, and I'll make sure that you got whiskey.
Fantastic. This has been a blast. This has been really fun.
You like it?
Yeah, I do.
I do.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
So this is, I love the stories. I love that. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. This is, I mean, most people could get into the weeds, especially, you know, somebody who's in finance. He's got a lot of personality.
I have to say you're quite right. Yes. And that's understandable why you got out of that.
Aidan, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Lynn,
I'm amazed.
Thanks for bringing your beach ass back into the studio.
Yeah, for you,
Megan, thank you for bartending all the time. Tommy, thanks for coming back and joining us. I mean, I've invited this man to come back and just have a beverage with me here so many times, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it."
And it took Megan to do it. Yeah,
I mean, you can see why.
I
So, but Aidan, thank you for being on the podcast. I can't wait to drink some Natterjack.
I know, I gotta check it out.
And you can order it online as well.
Yeah, Natterjack all across the country. And if I usually give out my discount code, but Phase is better. So if your listeners use Phase Special on natterjack.com, they'll get like a 15% discount. Mine is only 10%, and I, for the life of me, can't remember how that happened. But Phase Special will get you your 15% discount.
We're going to put Phase Special discount in the show notes.
We will, yes.
So you can make less money.
Exactly.
We gotta have her as a guest.
I know. I gotta get her perspective.
Sounds dynamite. Well, we gotta tell you, thank you again for being on the show. How do people follow you on the socials as we wrap this up now?
At Natterjack Irish Whiskey. But if you put Natterjack Whiskey into Google, all of it comes up. The SEO team are great, so it's not too hard to find.
And thank you again, listeners. We got to tell you what,
this was fun.
I guarantee if you don't share this with at least 2 people this episode, we're going to send somebody
to find you.
Yeah, with one of those acts.
I know.
So, folks, we hope you enjoy the week. Be safe. Stay cool out there, right?
For some parts of the United States, yes. Stay cool.
Or stay dry.
Yes, stay dry.
And above the water levels.
Yeah.
But anyway, we love you. Y'all have a great week.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.
And we're off the air now, so thank you. That was really fun.
Thanks. It was great. I loved it. It was really good fun.
Yeah, good. So now what are you going to do with the rest of your night?
So I mean, it's not getting much more interesting than this. I got to go and collect the cards and the tires changed. But Phase folks leave tomorrow. I also leave tomorrow for a month on the road. So have a lovely dinner tonight and maybe a barbecue, Texas barbecue, that sort of jazz. So we're gonna have some fun.
I'm gonna
excellent.
Do you a favor. I'm gonna put you in touch with a couple people who also working on distribution through the US and other places. Amazing. One is actually Albert and his group, Tequila Diligente.
Oh, right.
They're in Texas. and they started tequila company, so they're doing distribution. Maybe you guys can, just chat, and then I'm going to introduce you to somebody else in the Northeast as well. That might help you break into some new markets or introduce you to some people.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Darren. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody?
All right.
You
Yeah,
good?
I'm good. Thank you
Hey,
so much. Have a great
fantastic
evening.
night. Tell Faye we said hey.
With a course. She would have come on, but then I just take so much in the neck that we get sidelined. No, her folks. She's better at these things than me. So yeah, next time.
Okay. All right. Great. Have a great evening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.